Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's episode, in Team Season Preview 17 out of 32, I was joined by Washington Commanders fan James Collier as we preview the team's upcoming season. James discusses their playoff loss against the Eagles last season.
I think it maybe makes it a little less heartbreaking.
James also discusses the Terry McLaurin situation.
I think about a month ago I was quite blasé about it and I wasn't concerned, but yeah, every day that passes.
And James predicts the team's overall record in our win-loss tie section. Hope you all enjoy. Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast for another team's season preview, and the team in focus for this episode is the Washington Commanders. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, and with me, I've got a returning guest. He was on last year's Commanders season preview. Back with me today is Commanders fan James Collier. James, how are things? How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. It's always good to talk NFL. So yeah, thanks for having me back on. And obviously we're in a slightly different position than we were this time last year with a lot more optimism. I think I was quietly optimistic last season, with my predictions and things like that. But yeah, even I underestimated, and the season went a hell of a lot better than sort of anyone could anticipate. So yeah, good to be back on to chat about it again and see what we're going to look like this season.
Yeah, it's amazing what difference a year makes to any team, not just the Commanders, but sometimes in good or bad ways. But
yeah.
I was looking back, doing the research for the show and looking back at your prediction for last year. I'm not going to say what it is now. I'll save that bit for later on. But it wasn't predicting, certainly wasn't predicting what happened in the end for the Commanders. I mean, yourself, you've been a fan, probably, you've had no real success in your time as a fan. A bit like myself, really, with my team. But, it must have been such in a good way, such a nice feeling to actually see your team do well, make the playoffs, and then go on and make the other two championship game. That must have been just an incredible few weeks for you as a fan.
Yeah, it's like I think I might have even said this last year, but you're not expecting to have good things as a Commanders fan. You just don't anticipate it, and you're just waiting for something to go wrong. So yeah, to be able to sit up, watch playoff football, and yeah, to be having interested to see the team win, and then to be back again the next week doing the same thing. It was almost too good to be true. Yeah, obviously, eventually the wheels did fall off, but yeah, that kind of thing can happen in a game like that against a team as good as the Eagles. Yeah, it was a bit. I'm not going to say surreal, but yeah, as a fan, it's certainly something I've never experienced for the NFL. So yeah, it was a really good season, and like I said, there's just been no success in recent history for the Commanders. So yeah, it's great to see that finally change, and obviously coinciding with new ownership and things like that, it kind of made sense for it to happen. But yeah, these things in the NFL still rely on a lot of luck going your way. So yeah, it's really good to see that last year.
Does it make almost it soften the blow of losing that game against the Eagles, despite it being a division rival? The fact that you were so convincingly beat, it wasn't like think about Rams Saints years ago with dodgy call in the 2018 season, and then you think about there's what ifs in that game, and people always wonder, as a Drew Brees fan, I always wonder what would have happened if they'd made it there, or even if the Rams did win, but if the Chiefs had beaten the Patriots, there was a lot of what ifs in that game as well.
Yeah,
but I suppose with your loss against the Eagles, does it make it that soft? It softens the blow in a way, because not only have you lost convincingly, but also you lost to the champions, and you lost to a team that actually convincingly beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Is that almost better than losing by a field goal and that team goes and wins by a field goal? Because I want to compare it to being a Welsh football fan, and when we made the Euro semi-finals 2016, I thought Portugal were really bad in that game, and we weren't great either, granted. But there's always that little bit of feeling with how France played in the final against Portugal. There's always that feeling of, if we just had Ramsey not suspended, and there's always these what ifs, and I think that always lives with a lot of Welsh fans. I certainly always think about what would have happened if Ramsey was playing in that game, and the same thing I mentioned before about the Saints fans, but also think about the 13 seconds with the Bills, or even Ravens fans just recently this season, the Mark Andrews catch. But in a way, it doesn't make it better the fact that it was just a blowout, and not a blowout, but convincing win for the Eagles, and they won it convincingly against the Chiefs as well.
I think it maybe makes it a little less heartbreaking. Like you say, it's a divisional rival, so it's never going to be easy. I still think back to the game and see obviously if you look at the result, the scoreline, it is a blowout, but there were several moments moments early on in the game where it was close, and then it just came to turnovers. And for the Commanders, the weak spot was always the defense, and the defense just wasn't going to be able to handle giving the Eagles the ball. I think there might be like 5 turnovers in that game for the Commanders, like fumbles galore. So the defense was never going to be able to stop Saquon that many times. You give him the ball that many opportunities. And obviously, he had that long breakout run, which was like 50 yards or something like that. And that did put the nail in the coffin. So I guess, having those heartbreaking moments earlier on in the game makes it a little bit easier, and you're not looking back at it at the end thinking, oh, we were just one break away from getting to the Super Bowl. And obviously, it makes it easier because we know we had no real right or expectation to be in that position anyway. So if you'd have offered that to any Commanders fan at the beginning of the season, I don't think it had taken them very long to bite your hand off. The team well outperformed expectations, the quarterback well outperformed expectations, and it was always going to come to an end at some point. I would have liked our chances if we were able to get past the Eagles and get into the Super Bowl, just based on the sort of the momentum that you'd get out of that kind of run. But you come up against Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and you're not expecting anything in that game. So like I say, maybe a little bit easier, and a little bit less heartbreaking.
Yeah, I totally see that. Looking at the ins and outs of the off-season for the Commanders, the main ins include the likes of Von Miller, Deebo Samuel, Michael Gallup, KJ Osborne, Zach Ertz. These also include re-signings Marcus Mariota, Laramie Tunsil, Javon Kinlaw, Eddie Goldman, Dietrich Wise, Bobby Wagner, as well as Jonathan Jones, Matt Gay, and Tress Way, amongst many others. And the main outs include the likes of Jonathan Allen, Jeremy Chin, De'Ami Brown, Mikal Walker, Olamide Zaccheaus, Dante Fowler Jr., Jameson Crowder, Michael Dieter, Jeff Driscoll, as well as Austin Seibert, and a sad loss for many Brits, F.A. Abada. And then the draft includes the likes of tackle Josh Cornley Jr., 29th overall, cornerback Trey Amos, 61st overall, Jaden Lane, 128th overall, Kyan Medrano, 205th overall, and Jackery Crosskey Merritt, 245th overall. Now, James, for you as a Commanders fan, your take on your team's overall off-season?
So I guess the main bulk of those sort of additions or signings is kind of along the same theme as last year's, particularly the free agent ones anyway, where there's no real big name free agent there. They've spread the money around, and it was successful last year, so you can see why they would do it again this year. They're kind of building the floor of the roster, but obviously there's a couple of big swings there with those trades. I mean, maybe they're not huge swings, but if you consider the number of picks, and I think you obviously mentioned Deebo and Laramie Tunsil, but you kind of got to include Lattimore in there as well. I think if you include those three trades from sort of in the middle of the season to the off season, there's a lot of draft picks from 2025 and 2026 that they've given up there. And if you look at the state of the roster like 18 months ago, you wouldn't have thought that the roster was in a position where you could give up that many draft picks. So I'm still a little bit nervous about that. But it is, on the other hand, it's positive to be following a team where they can make these kind of moves where they're going after vets because they know that there's a chance that they can compete into the off season. So there is that side of it. But in general, I like the method of building around the young quarterback. They're not investing too much in the defense. They're beefing up the O-line and sort of giving him just enough weapons with obviously the couple of draft picks there and obviously trading for Deebo, where they obviously see that there's enough explosiveness within the offense with the quarterback that we've got. And they obviously see that Deebo is not the player that we saw last year. Whereas I think a lot of fans would have potentially liked to see them spend an early draft pick on a wide receiver or an explosive running back. And they've just done it a little bit of a different way. So I don't think it's necessarily the way that we would have all sort of predicted or sort of liked it to go. But I think having seen where we were this time last year and the way that they managed to build the roster, you can kind of see it and appreciate it a bit more. Do you think sort of how like the Lions built sort of their roster at the moment, that really invested in the O-line? So obviously trading for Tunsil and drafting Josh Connolly in the first round, you wouldn't have anticipated both those moves happening for the Commanders, but it just shows that they're really dedicated to that kind of view of how to build it, and they're not going to go out and just spend a first on a wide receiver or a running back when that might be just what the fans are clamoring for. So yeah, there's kind of a bit of a reliance on those weapons kind of sort of living up to what happened last year. I know obviously a lot of it was down to the quarterback and kind of baking in a bit of sort of Debo not being as bad as kind of the perception is from him last year, because we haven't really added anyone else other than sort of Jalen Lane, like you said, in the fourth. We had a great catch in training camp the other day, so if that's anything to go by, that's a positive. But yeah, in general, I'm overall positive on it. I think I'm more positive than I was on the off season last year. So if it's better than that, then it can only be a good thing.
Yeah, and you mentioned about the defense maybe not having too many upgrades, but you think about what I kind of have thought about. Marshall Lattimore, experienced player in the NFL. Von Miller's won 2 Super Bowls, Super Bowl MVP. You think about Debo Samuel's well on offense. These guys who's played in Super Bowls. They're sort of, even though some of these guys are bringing in are maybe slightly past it or over the hill. Bobby Wagner's coming back as well. I mean, these are guys who've won Super Bowls or they've been experienced players. Do you think that will almost help as much, as maybe some younger players, because they've got that experience for the locker room? And I think when it gets to, should the Commanders have a similar season to last year, and they make the playoffs and they go at least divisional rounds, maybe further, you've got guys who have been there and done it, even though they may not be playing every snap, they may be playing on like a rotational basis. But you've got, 2 players there that have won Super Bowls in great defenses. Von Miller, Bobby Wagner, you've got Marshall Lattimore. I said all these players just now, but do you think in a way that it's almost as valuable as getting a younger guy in a draft who in the 3rd or 4th round, when you can get someone like these players who maybe haven't got the talent they used to, but they've got that experience, they know how to get there and how to sort of lead off the field as much as on it?
I agree with that. Like if the team is making it deep into the off season, I would 100% rather those names than sort of the dart throw or the draft pick that you've given up for those players would be. But you are gambling a little bit that the team, last year wasn't a flash in the pan, and I don't think it is. But there's just a little bit more of a gamble. Whereas, if you're foreseeing this as this team is set up to win the Super Bowl within the next couple of years, then these moves are fully justified. But if we look at where the roster was a year ago, 18 months ago, you would never have anticipated that would be the situation we're in right now. So I just see it from both sides, where I would rather, use some of those draft picks on younger players that you're looking a bit more to the future, rather than investing so many in veterans. Like I think if those 3 big names there that they've kind of traded for, or at least the veterans that they've traded for, if they'd have maybe done 2 of them and kept hold of 1 or 2 of the draft picks and drafted a younger player in a different position or something like that, I would have felt a little bit more easy about it. I just thinking if you combine all 3 of them, there's just too many draft picks that they've given up. Because if you think, like I said, a year ago, this team was in a position of building up as many draft picks as they could. They were trading away veterans on the trade deadline to pick up extra picks, but they ended up having like 5 picks in the end. They were supposed to have 2 third-round picks, but they traded both of them away. No 5th-round picks. So I just feel like they've just maybe won too many swings on a veteran, and I would rather sort of keep the capital a little bit and look a bit more to the future as well, because hopefully with Jaden Daniels around, this is a team that can be competing for sort of deep into playoffs for the next 10 years. So you need to be thinking about that as well as the next 1 or 2 years.
Well, that whole the whole element of competing for playoffs will all hinge on potentially one player, and that is wide receiver Terry McLaurin.
So before we carry on the rest of this episode, just a quick disclaimer on Terry McLaurin. We recorded this podcast prior to his trade request. One of the disadvantages of recording podcasts in advance in a 24/7 world in the NFL offseason, things like this are missed. So for those of you who are watching this podcast or listening and wondering, why haven't we mentioned Terry McLaurin's trade request? That is why. But regardless of that, hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
Someone who's also very experienced in the team, been there for many years, played with a lot of bad quarterbacks. His first real year or two playing with a good quarterback. Kind of talk in the whole offseason has been about his current contract situation. There's been a lot of back and forth, a lot of different updates. But there's been actually one update given today, as recently as an hour ago, just over an hour ago, where, as per Adam Schefter, he said that he wants a new deal worth considerably more than DK Metcalf's $33 million per year. So it's been a rumbling off-season debate. Now, we do see a lot of times it does get solved. And then you think about Jamar Chase last season, he went on, got a triple crown after doing that. And there's been ones with other players who've held out and maybe not gone into training camp, or they've been holding out. We're seeing it right now with Trey Hendrickson. We had seen it with Shamir Stewart until literally about 3 or 4 days ago. So the kind of character he's been in his career, happy to play with mediocre quarterback, never really throwing up much of a fuss. It does seem awfully off character to now want the money when your team's actually got a chance of winning. But where do you see that? Do you see it just being a routine case of they'll pay the money, they'll take him a few weeks, but they'll eventually get it done, he'll return to practice, then week one comes and he's back to normal as if nothing happened? Or is there any part of you as a Commanders fan that worries that this could get any worse and he could potentially seek a trade?
I think about a month ago I was quite blasé about it and I wasn't concerned. But yeah, every day that passes, the concern grows, which is obviously logical. We're into training camp now. I think we've had to start in this week, aren't they? So yeah, the more you get into the real meaty part of training camp, it certainly is more concerning. I think he's holding in now. He's turning up to practice. He's obviously just not participating. And whereas last week he was holding out. I think this is maybe a little bit of a take you could get from other people, but I understand the business sense of it from the Commander's point of view. Like I said, he wants more money than DK Metcalf, which is fine. I kind of think he deserves that. It's the age, and he's going to be 30 a week or two into the season. So you can understand why they would be hesitant not to set a precedent, of paying someone like that above market value, or real top of market value when they're that old. And obviously he's already on a contract, so if they are to extend him and pay him higher than DK Metcalf, that's not just this year. That's into the future that he's going to get that money. But as you've just said, this isn't a normal player. This isn't a normal situation. This is the only player that the Commanders have really had of any real value, or someone that they can really get behind over the last few years. Like I said, he's put up with a lot. He's been a great teammate. So you just have to suck it up and pay the man and worry about it later. It's like I said, there is going to be an issue in for a couple of years because it's going to be an extension and it's not a new deal. He's not out of contract now, but as long as it's not causing you an issue when it comes to paying Jaden Daniels, you just have to do it now. Like we've gone through the off season ins and outs, and other than Debo, there's no one really you can be hanging your hat on from a weapons point of view for Jaden Daniels. So you can't go and make these off-season moves that we've seen, trade up all this capital for veterans, and then risk this happening with your number one weapon on offense. So I am still confident that something will happen and he will be playing for the Commanders this season. But yeah, every day that passes, it gets more concerning. He doesn't seem to be the kind of guy that's going to demand a trade, but you just never know. I just can't see how they can keep it going that long, because like I said, they've got too much of their eggs in the basket for the next couple of years that they're just going to have to do something about it. But definitely getting more concerned every day.
Absolutely, I can see how you feel that way, and I think you said it nail on the head. I do think it's just a matter of just paying him because it would almost be when you're getting a quarterback who finally is doing well, and Daniels, you finally got your guy to then have your star receiver who was there for all the tough times, then leave because you haven't paid him an extra 10, 15 million. That's just going one step forward, two steps back, and I feel like you give him, I don't know, a 2-3 year extension, then that's there. You wouldn't want to give him like a 5-6 year deal because of his age, but certainly a 2 or 3 year deal. I think you have to do it because the window's now. The off-season moves in terms of getting in Samuel and the kind of way the situation is now with a lot of rookie quarterbacks, want a rookie deal, cheaper money, you can spend elsewhere. Now's the time to try and compete for Super Bowls, and I want to wind back to when Patrick Mahomes got that 10-year deal with the Chiefs. Can't think what year it was, but there was a lot of shock going around the league saying, "Oh my God, they're paying him this much," and there was a lot of feeling that it would sort of set the Chiefs back money-wise. And what's happened since has been multiple Super Bowls and a couple of losses. But with that, you see how the market has a tendency to sort of constantly reset. I mean, every week it seems someone is the highest paid player in their position when they get a new deal. And, right now it may seem like a lot, but in a year or two's time, it could be, not that bad. I mean, Mahomes I don't think he's even in the top 10 high paid quarterbacks now, I don't think, because of the kind of deal he had. And once he got paid, everyone else started getting paid more afterwards. Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa, many others have been paid. And I think you just got to do it. You just got to pay him because you can trade him away, you can get these picks, but you can't guarantee the picks are going to be as good as him. And even if they are as good as him, they may take a couple of years to break through. So I think you've got a guy that knows the system. He knows the franchise. He's been there for 3 different team names. I just think that he's someone you cannot lose, and you cannot really have any question about it. Just pay him the money, whatever he wants, and if that means losing, one of the experienced guys you mentioned earlier, or it means losing someone else, and fair enough. But he is, along with Daniels, he is the heartbeat of this team, particularly the offense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just something has to happen. It has to get done. And hopefully give it a month before the season starts, and it has been done. But like you say, it's just in NFL, it always pays to pay the player earlier, like you said with the Mahomes thing. The sooner you get it done, the better that deal looks in a year's time. You've got teams like the Cowboys that just take so long to pay the players, and then they end up having to pay them more just because they've decided to sort of delay. It is slightly different with someone of McLaurin's age, and how long you can see him being in the league for. But it's the same thing. You just have to get it done, and that deal will look cheaper in a year's time if you get it done earlier.
Absolutely. Now, someone we've mentioned throughout the episode is Jaden Daniels. An amazing rookie year. Probably, I would say, in my 14 years watching it, and certainly since I started watching it properly in like 2015, what the best rookie quarterback season I've seen from any player. It was an amazing year. Seemed to get better as each week went on, and seemed to be really good when it mattered in the playoffs. That Detroit Lions win, I'll always remember that performance. But there's been a narrative around the media. We get with a lot of quarterbacks. Had it with Stroud last year about the 2 S words, sophomore slump. Now, Stroud did have a little bit of a dip, but he still made the playoffs, still won a playoff game. Could have easily beat the Chiefs if they hadn't had those individual errors from other people on the team. And, it has happened. I mean, Stroud's numbers did decline. But on the other hand, you see, Lamar Jackson's second year won an MVP. Mahomes' second year starting won a Super Bowl. But there are other players who have had sophomore slumps. I mean, I remember there was a lot of hype around Drew Lock after his handful of games he played in 2019, and then he had a terrible next year and never really recovered. And there are players that do have these really poor second years, but then some do recover third year. But do you think, what's your views on the narrative about sophomore slump? Are you buying into it, or do you think it's just another lazy narrative?
It is a little bit lazy. I mean, that's just the nature of the media and everything these days around sports, isn't it? That there's got to be some sort of narrative around someone that's done well the year before. I think, like you said, it was such a good rookie season, like something that we've not seen for such a long time. That, yeah, of course, it'd be logical to expect that some things aren't going to bounce the Commanders' way or Daniel's way. I mean, if you only need to look at the game against the Bears, the Hail Mary. I mean, you can't expect that kind of thing to happen again. The Commanders, a lot of the Commanders' success on offense was built around going for it on fourth down. So you only need a little bit of volatility in that, and you're not seeing as many sort of late wins or comebacks in games. And even in the playoffs, there was a lot of going for it on fourth down, and obviously they won 2 of the 3 playoff games, so it worked for them. So yeah, you can see the bounces going the wrong way, and from a narrative point of view, all that matters is the end result. How many games did he win? What did he look like? So if he is going for it on fourth down and he's not making that pass and the team loses, the sophomore slump is going to be brought up. It's interesting you make the comparison to Stroud. Obviously, that's the easiest one. He was the Rookie of the Year the season before. But if you consider what the Commanders' offense was like last year and what the Texans' offense was like in Stroud's rookie year, they're completely different. Like, the Commanders' offense was one of the top 5 offenses in the league, I think, by almost any metric and by anyone's perception if they're watching the games. But that wasn't the case for the Texans. The Texans were just a solid offense. I think I looked at this. I mean, there are better ways of looking at how good an offense is, but I was looking at just the number of touchdowns that they both scored. So the Texans scored 40 touchdowns in Stroud's rookie year, and they only scored 38 last year. That's only a difference of 2. So I know there are better ways, like I said, of managing how good an offense is, but in terms of sort of how often they were scoring, that wasn't a huge difference. But the perception of it, because we were seeing Stroud getting sacked every week because the offensive line was in turmoil, and they were such a rigid offense that they would just run the ball every first down. You watch any Texans game, first down, handoff, second down, handoff, third down, we're 3rd and 8, and then the O-line just wasn't good enough to keep Stroud upright to do anything. And then I looked at the Commanders' touchdowns. So in Stroud's rookie year, the Commanders obviously had I forgot his name, Sam Howell as quarterback. They scored 39 touchdowns. There's only 1 less than the Texans scored that year when Stroud was rookie of the year. So the comparisons between the offenses, the Commanders then went on and had 55 touchdowns last year. So that's a huge bump. So yeah, I think we can expect there to be some form of decline. We're not going to be, scoring 30 points a game, I wouldn't imagine. But when you're sort of operating on that significantly higher level, the top 5 offense, then a slump maybe is they're just a top 10 offense or top 8 or something like that, and it's not as bad as sort of we're perceiving it could be. And obviously, I mentioned that one of the key reasons for Stroud that he had such a indifferent sort of mixed season was the O-line. It's kind of ironic that his left tackle is now playing in Washington, but as well as sort of acquiring Tunsil, they've also obviously bulked up the O-line in other areas. There is Sam Cosme, who looks like he's going to miss potentially to start the season. But I think that the Commanders have done enough around the roster to sort of beef that up and to make sure that that's not the same issue for Daniels this year. So in summary, I think it's maybe a little bit lazy. It's an easy thing to say, drives clicks, it gets people talking. And there will probably be a few things that don't go Daniel's way, whereas last year pretty much everything did. But I don't necessarily see it be, this is a team that ends up with a losing record because of the quarterback play. There'd have to be a lot of other things go wrong for that to be the case, I think.
Yeah, I think the fact they've gone out and built around him could easily raise expectations, and I think the whole season last year can raise expectations, and that could cause people to, expect the same when, you go divisional round, the wildcard round. Whilst it's a earlier exit, it's still something you would have taken 2 years ago, a playoff defeat in the NFC Championship and wildcard round. You'd take that in a heartbeat. Moving on now to our penultimate section, was going to be our win-loss tie section. So for those of you that don't know, who are watching this for the first time or listening, each fan who comes on predicts their team's overall record by going through each game and answering with a win, loss, or tie. Now, James, you came on a year ago. The Commanders finished 12-5 in 2024. Do you by chance remember what your prediction was a year ago?
Yeah, it was a positive record. So I think maybe 9 wins.
Yeah, 9-8. So I think you had 9-8, and I think that was you. I think you also predicted to miss out on the playoffs through that record. I think 9-8 is also is always a bit of a catchy line. Could get you in, you could just miss out. So I don't think you'll be getting less wins this year, certainly. But I'm intrigued to know what you get in your prediction. So we're starting off in week 1. It's a road game against NFC East rivals, the New York Giants. James, win, lose, or tie?
Yeah, I mean, these 2 picks, the Giants this season, are going to be one of the easiest ones. I think it has to be a win with the situation in New York. Like, who is even going to be their quarterback? Obviously, they were picking second overall. If you're predicting your team's sort of outcomes for the season, you're not predicting that they lose to the Giants, no matter who you are. You never say never in a divisional game, but I just can't go any other way there.
Well, week 2 is a road game against the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field.
Yeah, so they're a bit unfortunate, I think, this season with playing the NFC North, which you could probably say is one of the best divisions, if not the best division in the NFL. I think that what I'll probably end up doing is saying we'll lose the road games and win the home games. So as this one's on the road, Packers obviously a strong team early in the season. I'll say a loss there.
Well, week 3, you're back at home, but this time you're against the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, another team picking high up in the draft. But there's just not enough of a reason for me to say that we would lose that game. So, obviously there's maybe some excitement over the acquisitions for the Raiders, but I'll go for a win, and it'd be hard to predict anything else.
So week 4 is your first of 2 back-to-back road games, and it is firstly against the Atlanta Falcons.
So I think the Falcons was towards the end of last season, wasn't it? And I think Penix was playing in that game. The Commanders played, and it was very close. Commanders came out on top. I'd say they'll do the same again this year, even though it's on the road.
Okay, well, going from one choke artist to another as you take on the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, again, as it's a road game against such a strong team, it's difficult to predict a win there. I like to think in these kind of games, these are the games where it will be competitive, whereas you would never have anticipated that before for the Commanders. But this could be one of those games where the bounce goes the wrong way for Daniels, and we don't end up winning, but hopefully it'll be close.
Well, then week 6, it's a rematch of the game last year with the Hail Mary. You're at home to the Chicago Bears.
It'll be interesting. What week was the Hail Mary? It was maybe week 8 last year.
I remember it because I was actually in Miami when that happened. So that would have been it was about late October, final October game of the season.
Yeah.
Week 8, week 7, week 8.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a little bit earlier. Obviously, I'm like I said, it's a home game, so the chances are I'm going to go for a win. And obviously, there's again the Bears are another one of those teams where they could kind of turn themselves around the same way that the Commanders did last year with sort of the moves they've made, the new head coach and things like that. But as it stands, a home game would be a win for me.
Well, then in week 7, it's your first of 2 meetings with an NFC East rival in the Dallas Cowboys on the road.
Yeah, I've surprised myself. I've put down a loss here. I'll stick with that. I think the Cowboys, I always kind of predict the Cowboys and Eagles that will split and we'll each win one game each. So I guess when I was doing this, I went with the road game that we would lose. The loss to the Cowboys, there was a couple of close games against them last year, so it doesn't take much to sort of swing it either way.
Well, another road game in week 8, and you are this time taking on the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, it's hard to predict a road win against the Chiefs. Even with sort of the turnaround that the Commanders have had, I'll go for a loss there.
Well, then week 9, you're taking on at home the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, another one of the fairly easy ones. I think Seahawks have got a good chance to be a good team and maybe scrape the playoffs this year, but at home, I will take a win there.
We're sticking at home for week 10 as you host the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, this is where I mentioned that we'd split games against the NFC North, and I'll take the home games as wins. Obviously, with the Lions, they were the best team in the NFC last year. Just the injuries caught up with them, but hopefully for the Commanders and sort of the other teams at the top of the NFC, that the coaching changes and some of the losses that they've had, we'll see them drop down a little bit. So I'll take a win on that one.
Well, week 11, I should say now, Olé, as we travel to Spain, as you take on the Miami Dolphins. First of all, before we get on to the result, are you going to the game? Or are you going to try and go to the game at least?
Yeah, I did think about it. I just, you see these queues that the number in the queue that you end up seeing, and it was so difficult or to get tickets in the past. I haven't got a ticket. I would consider it if I was offered one. Obviously, I would love to go. It's just sort of the money and the time and things like that when you've got a family and stuff like that. Absolutely love to go, because it's definitely going to be a win for the Commanders as well. Obviously, just saying that, the Dolphins are another team where if you're predicting the outcome right now, it's pretty easy to predict the Commanders win. But obviously, once you get into the season and things turn around for these teams, it's not that clear cut. But yeah, right now, I'd say a win there. What about you? Are you going?
I hope to be. I didn't get tickets online. It was just the cost put me off a little bit, and I'm kind of hoping that I can get some sort of media there, but I don't want to guarantee it, because the first year of Munich I didn't get any, because I don't know whether it should be so in demand. But I'm going to try, and I'm hoping that I built up enough creds over the time so far that I'll be able to get in. But I don't want to. I've booked a hotel on booking.com, but it's one of the ones where you can pay, like you don't pay till the week before, or maybe a month before. So I'm not booking any flights yet. I'm going to wait until I know, and then once I know, I'll book the flight and go. But I've got plans with friends of the show, Sky Pank, and other people as well who are going to be there. It's just got to get it first, but hopefully I do, because I've been to a fair few games now in media, and I've not yet done my team. I've done multiple teams, the Jags multiple times, obviously, but I've not yet done my own team in media. So hopefully I can get it. But I think it's one of the ones where it's at the moment a TBC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would definitely be highly in demand, that one, won't it? First game there, and then obviously the Dolphins are a pretty popular team in Europe. I assume they are in the UK, and obviously the Commanders have got to the conference championship game last year and have got a sort of a big name. So yeah, hopefully you can get them though. Be good.
Yeah, my fingers and toes and legs are crossed. So you have got a bye in week 12 after your game in Spain. So week 13 is a home game against the Denver Broncos.
And yeah, another tough one. I think this is the thing that's this year. It's not the same sort of schedule as it was last year when you finished bottom of the division. Although this is not a game that we're playing against the fourth place team or the same place team. But yeah, I'll take a win there again, just because of that home factor. It's obviously going to be a tough game. Broncos have obviously also got a sophomore quarterback that kind of surpassed expectations last year, and obviously a great coach, and they've made some interesting moves this season. But yeah, I'll just take the factor of the home game there and take a win.
Okay, so then in week 14, you are on the road to the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, the Vikings have got one of the best rosters. The only question mark is the quarterback. So as it's a road game, I'm going to assume a loss here. But it's another one of those games I mentioned all throughout that I think could easily go either way. But yeah, I'll preempt myself there and sort of temper expectations and take a loss.
Well, so week 15, you are on the road to the New York Giants.
Yeah, I said already, the Giants, you can't be predicting that you're going to lose a game to the Giants if you're sort of positive about your team's outlook for the season. So yeah, another win there.
Okay, so then week 16, which could be a massive game when it comes to the NFC East standings, is a home game against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I think it was week 16 last year that they played the Eagles as well, and then that was the game that Jalen Hurts got injured. So it took a lot. It took a lot to win that game, and it was very close, even though Jalen Hurts missed most of it. Again, I've said it so many times. A home divisional game, I'm going to take a win. I don't expect it, but it's just the optimist in me. Divisional games at home, you can almost expect to see your team sort of outperform and win those games. But it's the Eagles are going to be a tough team to beat.
Well, then week 17 is your final home game of the regular season, and you take on the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, okay. Probably copy and paste most of what I just said. So home divisional game. That'll be the game that seals the division for us, I think. Win that one, and then we can put our feet up for week 18.
Well, speaking of week 18, you are on the road to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, exactly that. So that's going to potentially, you see these games this week 18 where, both teams have got their feet up or nothing can change. But it'd be really interesting to see that one, because if the Eagles do sort of have a little bit of a drop off because of the coaching changes or the players they've lost, that could be a game where you're playing for the division or you're playing for the second seed or the first seed in the conference. So I've got it down as a loss, just because it's on the road. But yeah, it'd be really interesting to see if that game is sort of pivotal for the playoffs. I just made the joke there for the Cowboys that hopefully we've already won the division and we can put our feet up in that game, which is what I'm used to seeing other teams do against the Commanders. Was it a few years, maybe about 10 years ago now, where the Giants were on the beach because they'd already made the playoffs and the Commanders just needed to beat them. It was probably the Redskins back then. It just needed to beat a second string Giants team and they couldn't do it with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. So it'd be really nice for that to be the other way around. For the Commanders have their feet up in that one.
Well, there we are. So according to your guesses, you will finish with a 11-6 record, which would easily get you in the playoffs unless you're extremely unlucky. So if that's the case, how far do you think with that record you'll get in the postseason?
Yes, it's the off season. The postseason is just almost a toss up, isn't it? Like the games this year, obviously the Bucks game was really close. The Lions game maybe not, and then the Eagles game wasn't close the other way. It really just depends who you're playing, what sort of mood everyone's in, and if we were to win the division, we're playing those games at home. Again, I'm going to expect us to go far. I don't think I can kind of hang my hat and expect another conference championship appearance. There'll be a little bit of me that's disappointed if we don't kind of get back as far as we did. It's one of those things in the NFL where we always say, look, you've got this Super Bowl window with this young quarterback, but things change so quickly and you have to make the most of it when you're there. The Lions saw it last year where they had the heartbreaking loss and then they kind of assumed they're the top seed, they're going to get back there again, but then obviously they played the Commanders and it didn't work out that way. So you have to make the most of it where you can. I think it would be another sort of entertaining playoff run, but maybe we'll lose in the divisional round this time rather than conference championships.
Okay, so let's head on to our final section, which is going to be our Fan Asks Fan section. So in this final section, each fan who comes on will ask the next guest a question whilst also answering a question from the previous guest. So our last team was actually the Miami Dolphins. It was myself, Sam Moores, and Mark Bradley that came on the show. Now, Mark had the honours of asking the question, and this was to you, James. Which player will win Comeback Player of the Year this season?
Oh, interesting. Okay, now I need to remember who missed time last year. I think the obvious, just within the division, an obvious name that comes to my head is Dak Prescott. Obviously missed a lot of the season, and I am kind of anticipating a bit of a bounce back from the Cowboys. Who else? Are there any other big name quarterbacks that missed a lot of time last year?
I mean, you could put JJ McCarthy in that argument because he has.
Yeah,
but then he's not played a single NFL snap. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, in terms of non-injury point of view, I can see him having a good year. I mean, my kind of person in my head I can think of is, in terms of not even a quarterback, not even an offense, I think Aiden Hutchinson would be sort of one that I would look at. But
if the Lions kind of get back to being the number one seed, you kind of anticipate that it'd take a big season from someone like him. I'll stick with the quarterback though. I think these kind of awards are they tend to be sort of narrative-based awards where, everyone loves to hate on the Cowboys. So, if they were able to kind of make the playoffs and see Dak missed, well, it was at least half the season, wasn't it, that he's going to be in the front runner. And these awards gravitate towards quarterbacks. I don't dislike Dak as a player. Obviously, I dislike the fact that he plays for the Cowboys, so I don't really want him to be in a position where he's the comeback player of the year, because that means they've had a good year. But yeah, it's an easy sort of cop-out answer, I guess, to go for the quarterback that I can think of.
To be fair, I can't think of the last player to win one not being a quarterback. I mean, Joe Burrow won it. He's won it twice in his career already. Literally, my name's Joe Flacco won it the year before that as well.
Geno must have won it as well.
Geno Smith, that would have been 2022. Yeah. 2021 would have been Joe Burrow. 2020, who would that have been in 2020? Was it Alex Smith who won it 2020? Did he win the award after that? Or did he just...
Maybe, yeah.
Sounds right. I'm very curious to know who actually was the last non-quarterback to win. Let's have a look. Now, I'm having to rely on Wikipedia for this one, so hopefully Wikipedia is correct. Let's have a look. So, winners, here we are. So winners... Chad Pennington is one of 2 players to win the award more than once, and that obviously is Joe Burrow as well. So yeah, it was Burrow, then Flacco before that, then Smith, then Burrow again, Smith, Ryan Tannehill won it, Andrew Luck. I found the answer. There was actually a long time from Rivers winning it in 2013, Andrew Luck winning it 2018. There was no quarterback who won the award. Rob Gronkowski 2015, Eric Berry 2015, Jordy Nelson 2016. But there was another player in 2017 that was the last player to win the award who wasn't a quarterback.
For 2017? Was it offensive player, I guess?
Offensive player. I'll give you the position, wide receiver. And when I mentioned Philip Rivers, that might give you a clue as to the team.
Keenan Allen spent a lot of his years injured, didn't he, at the start of his career? So
yeah, that was the last player, 2017. But no, now it's time for you, James, to ask our next team season preview guest a question. So can you give me your question for the next guest?
Yeah, sure. So I was thinking along the lines of, let me just think of exactly how I want to word this. So what game is it? So you can pick any game that's happened in the NFL in the past that you want to change the result of. So obviously you're probably, it depends to who you've got on, whether they're a fan of a team that made the Super Bowl. They'll probably pick a Super Bowl loss or something like that, or maybe it was just a rivalry game or something like that. Obviously for me, I would go back to last year and probably overturn the game against the Eagles. But I would have had a different answer if you was asking me this a year ago, and it would have probably been around the game that we just lost in a heartbreaking way or something like that. So yeah, what game of your sort of the period you've been following the NFL would you go back and overturn the decision or change it? Obviously, I assume in favour of your team.
I absolutely love that question. It's one of the best we've had so far in multiple season previews so far. And I know my answer in my head, what I would have. I would certainly have the Titans game a couple of years ago for the Dolphins, where we were miles ahead with 3 minutes left, and I think you won that game, we'd have won the division and could have rested some players, and we could have potentially got on the playoffs. But yeah, you'll find out who our next guest answers with, or what game he answers with, in our next team season preview. But in the meantime, this has been today's episode. So James, once again, thank you for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It's good to come back on and sort of revisit last year, and hopefully we've got an equally positive year for the Commanders this year.
Well, of course, we are playing my team, and as we always do on the show, most weeks of the season we do try and get fans on who are playing the team that my team's playing. And obviously sometimes it could be a review or a preview, so you might hear James's voice throughout the season, either reviewing or previewing that game in Madrid. But in the meantime, this has been the Across the Pod NFL Podcast 2025 Washington Commanders season preview. I have been, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, with our guest today, James Collier, and we'll see you guys for our next team season preview. See you then.